Hello, you guys. Welcome to this another episode. I think it's episode number 3, TBTBD, of the podcast with Nicole, Girls Talk with Nicole. Today, we are going to talk about something different than dating. We are going to put my favorite topic for a second aside. And I'm going to tell you about 20 something things. I think I collected 25 at the end of the day about the Netherlands that I have noticed for the past, girl, I think like 14 years that I've been living here. Mind you, this is not an attack, okay? Take it with a pinch of salt. It's just an observation. And of course, at the end of the day, the balance must be positive because I'm still here and nobody's forcing me to live here. But yeah, obviously, just like with any other country, with any other group of people, there are certain things that repeatedly happen. And throughout those years, I noticed a certain pattern and some unique or less unique things about Dutch people and this country in general. And I thought that I'm just going to share it with you and yeah, I'm just gonna put it out there and you can let me know whether you agree or whether you disagree, whether you're part of this group or not. And maybe you can also let me know what is it like in your country and if it's similar or different. Just a little background story in case you don't know. I was born in Poland and I've been in the Netherlands for the past 13, almost 14 years. So I moved first to Eindhoven. I used to live in down south, the Netherlands, and now I've been in Amsterdam, I think 8 or 9 years already. So this is my story when it comes to living in the Netherlands. And, I find myself pretty well integrated. I studied here and I also speak Dutch fluently. So, yeah, I feel like I'm pretty reliable person to say things about the Netherlands. And obviously, it's not like everybody's the same, right? Like people are still different. But yet again, all I'm saying is that I'm about to just tell you some things that are kind of considered like they're seen quite often in the Netherlands. Okay, I feel like my disclaimer was long enough to make sure nobody gets hurt. And again, I don't even know why I'm freaking out like this because I don't think those things are negative. I feel like most of them are actually quite cool. I have my phone again. This time I have my iPhone 1 or something where I put my notes in because your girl has to take a look every now and then at her notes to make sure that I stick to the topic. So without further ado, let's jump straight into it. Let's start from number 1, the most important thing in this country. Drum rolls, please. Tikkie. If you are not from the Netherlands and you're not familiar with the concept, let me explain to you. But one thing that has to be said is that Tikkie is very important in this country. Now, in case, again, you don't know what Tikkie is an application that I don't even know for sure, but I can bet was invented by a Dutch person. So this application is meant for people to give each other money back. So basically, if we go, for instance, to a restaurant and I pay the bill, I can send you Tikkie, meaning like a little link that you can click on. And then with like 1 or 2 clicks, you can pay me money back. So it's just very easy and convenient way to give each other money back and to ask for money back. And that's great. I love it. It's super convenient, super easy, no drama. But the thing is that some people in this country will send you that Tikkie. That's what we say, like send me Tikkie, which means send me a payment request. They will send you a Tikkie for like 50 cents. And I find it so low because come on, girl, like 50 cents. And I swear to you, it happened to me. I'm not even speaking of like secondhand experience, but it happened to me when I would like go out with somebody. It was a girl that I was friends with. Was very important. So we went out to cinema and I think she bought tickets and I bought popcorn and cola. So eventually the balance was that I would owe her 50 cents. Like, she was like 50 cents plus. And she sent me a Tikkie for 50 cents. And I'm like, girl. Because, like for instance, with my other friends, like with my Polish friends or South American friends, we don't bother with those things. It's just like, keeping it more or less even. Like you pay sometimes, I pay sometimes. It's all cool. But yeah, not everybody's like that. And yet again, I must mention that my Dutch friends that are in my circle are fortunately not like that, but you see it a lot of times that people are very tight with their money, period, you know? And one thing that is good about it, in my opinion, is that because they are tight with their money, they're also good with their money. From my experience, a lot of people who were born and raised in the Netherlands, they're very wise with their money. They don't spend money or useless things. They're very good at saving. So that is actually very good, in my opinion. Same when it comes to traveling, for instance. Dutch people really, really love to travel. Here you have another point, number 3, by the way, I think. But they're also very good to travel on budget. So they're very good with finding cheaper options, and they don't mind slightly small inconveniences to make their traveling cheaper, such as traveling from a further airport. So you can, for instance, take a Flixbus to Düsseldorf and then you fly cheaper. And that's something that I really, really love, because to be very honest with you, I'm not that smart with money. I'm a spender and I always put my comfort above any price. But when I travel with my Dutch friends, I see myself saving a lot of money and I also learn a lot. So that's very big positive. There's like another app that I also really, really like. And again, I feel like that must have been invented by a Dutch person, because it's even called in Dutch, and it's called Wie betaalt wat, which means who pays what. So it's just another application which I almost want to recommend you guys, or not even almost, I just want to recommend it to you guys. So basically what we do with my friends is we use this app for when we're traveling, because then you are together for more days, and then sometimes one person pays one thing, other person pays another thing. And I feel like, you know, when you travel, the money that you spend a little bit bigger than just for one dinner or movie night. So then it's good to keep a track of who pays what, to make sure that nobody is paying way too much, right? So with this application, you can easily just put in all the expenses that you had during the travels, and that application just calculates it for you very easily, who owes who money. Super, super great as well. But yeah, it again proves that Dutch people are super good and conscious about their finances. And yeah, even though it sounds like they might be sometimes a little bit greedy, I think that at the end of the day, it is actually a good thing, because they know where the money is and they're pretty good with money, period. Let's move on to another thing that is not related to finances. We are going to go back to it because there's another thing that I put on my list, but hold on for a second. I'll tell you about it in a minute. But another thing that I really like about Dutch people, actually, and it struck me for many, many years a lot of times, is that they speak so many languages. Most of my friends, you guys, speak at least 3 languages, and I mean fluently. And don't even get me started on English. When it comes to English, everybody speaks English here. Even homeless people or people that you would never expect to speak a foreign language. And of course, there are some people who speak English quite poorly, one would say, or they have really strong accent, but still they can communicate and they can make the message come across. And especially when it comes to young people, they sometimes speak with like an American accent. They sound like natives, which is pretty cool. And like I said already, a lot of people speak also third language fluently, and that's a lot of times because there's a lot of people who have different heritage. So for instance, their parents are from different country, or at least one parent is not Dutch, so then they end up speaking this language at home, and that's how they end up speaking 3 languages fluently. And that's so cool, because, you know, I speak 4 languages, and in other countries, like when I travel to America or even where I'm from, it's very impressive, you know. People are like, whoa, you speak 4 languages. Whereas here, it's just normal. 3 is like almost the bare minimum. And of course, the Netherlands is quite a small country, so that also comes with being open to learning new languages, because you can only speak your language with this tiny amount of people. And because Dutch is very similar to German, a lot of people can kind of speak German, like they can fake it till they make it. So yeah, they're very, very open to speak different languages. And in case you don't know, because I didn't know that, in the Netherlands the TV is in English. So for instance, if you have a English movie, it's going to be in English and there's going to be subtitles in Dutch. And of course, now with Netflix, everybody's familiar with that concept, but that already has been a thing in the Netherlands even before Netflix. Like when I arrived here 13 years ago, and the TV, like the regular TV, was still more of a thing than it's now. we were watching movies in the original language, and then we only had Dutch subtitles, which, for instance, in country where I'm from, in Poland, I don't know if it's still a thing because obviously I've been gone for so many years, but back in the days you had one voiceover that would translate everything. And the funny thing actually about it is that it wouldn't even be different voices to different actors. It was this one monotonous guy's voice who would not even show any emotions. He would just very monotonously read out what the actors were saying. So then you wouldn't even know the actors' voices, and you wouldn't even have a chance to learn the language, because I feel like this is also one of the ways how especially the older generation learned English, at least a little bit, because of the movies and stuff. So yeah, they speak a lot of languages. I already mentioned it that they really, really love traveling, but I want to elaborate on it a little bit more. I see a lot of Dutch people going for city trips a lot, and I noticed like a little pattern that most of Dutch people who of course can afford it, which is a big majority in my opinion, go once a year for like big holidays, sometimes even outside of Europe, and few times a year, like 2 or 3 times a year, they go for like little city trips. It's very common here for people to just travel and get out. And again, I think it's for one, because it's a small country, so they really like to see different cultures and visit different countries. But also I became a part of this gang because the weather here is so bad. We barely see any blue sky. It's most of the times gray and very, very often raining. You almost need those city trips to warmer countries like Spain, Portugal, or I don't know, Italy, to see some blue sky. Like, it's not even about the temperature, you know? But I feel like if you stay here for too long, you just become so depressed and you crave seeing a little bit of sunshine. And this is why Dutch people go away for those small city trips. I don't know if that's the reason for everyone, but recently, like year now, I would say, I became fortunate enough to have enough financial means to do this. And girl, I feel like I cracked the code to pursuit of happiness while living in Amsterdam. Make the money that you can make, and then go away every few weeks to Spain or Turkey or whatever to see some sun and to charge your batteries. So yeah, they really, really love traveling. Another thing is that simplicity in this country is really a thing. Again, let me elaborate. So, for instance, one thing that I have noticed a lot of times is that even very wealthy people don't really bother with being super flashy and drive like super expensive cars or wear super flashy and expensive attire. I feel like most of people are very regular and normal here. Even they have this saying that says "Doe normaal, dan doe je al gek genoeg," which means just be normal, then you're already crazy enough. And you can really see it in the general population. Like I said, a lot of wealthy people, they wear just very simple clothes. Like they stick maybe to like quality clothes, for instance, Scotch and Soda or Ralph and Lauren, but nothing crazy. Like in other countries, you see people flashing Louis Vuitton, Gucci, and whatever. And the same comes to driving cars. Like some people who are very wealthy sometimes don't even have a car, and they just drive a bike, their very old and simple bike. And again, I really, really like it because again, it shows how smart with finances a lot of people are here. But when it comes to biking, girl, this goes deeper than that. Again, for a lot of foreigners, it's a shocker. Of course, for us, it's normal. But people bike here everywhere, every day. And by saying every day, I really mean it. Even if it's the worst rain, snow, whatever, some, not all obviously, but a lot of Dutch people will still bike because they're like, well, it's just rain, and they're obviously used to it from being very young. But when I came here, I was just shocked because, I mean, to be very honest, I don't like biking. So now I have an electric bike, which makes it way easier because, yeah, it's very easy to bike with it. You don't really have to put any effort. And you're way faster as well. But yeah, a lot of Dutch people just have their regular, no gears bike, and they're totally fine with it. And they're gonna bike whether it's 1 degree, 30 degrees, windy, no windy, snowy, rainy, whatever. And actually, a little fun fact, there is more bikes apparently in Amsterdam than people, which makes total sense, and I 100% believe it because I even have 2 bikes, and I'm somebody that doesn't even like to bike, but I happen to have 2 bikes. So I can imagine that some people might have even 3, and that makes total sense that there is more bikes than people. Let's move on. Dutch directness. Let's talk about it. That's a little bit tricky one, but I'm going to say it. Dutch people are considered to be very direct and blunt, as in they speak their mind and they will always say what they think. You have a lot of memes about it, and you hear also a lot about it from people from abroad who heard it or experienced it. Cool. But to be very honest, throughout those years that I have been here, I noticed that sometimes, okay, it's being direct and speaking up your mind. I love it, and I'll tell you about it in a second. But sometimes it's just being rude. I really feel like sometimes they kind of like say that it's being direct, but actually, to be very fair with you, it's just being rude. Sometimes it's just unnecessary, you know? I was raised with this principle from my parents that goes like, if you have nothing nice to say, then don't say anything. And I don't really think it's the best thing always, but I feel like sometimes some people could use that one instead of being direct and blunt, because sometimes you don't really gain anything besides hurting others people's feelings. However, let me tell you something before you come for me. I definitely have learned in the Netherlands to stand up for myself more and to set my boundaries. And that is because of being direct and speaking up your mind. So there is a positive about it. And I think that sometimes it's very, very useful, but not always. Sometimes I feel like it's just being rude and it's just unnecessary. And that's my opinion, period. Another tricky one, and very interesting in my opinion, is that women love their independence here. Again, that does not apply to every single Dutch lady, but I have noticed again another pattern that Dutch girls really like to be independent, period. And that translates to a lot of different examples. I'll give you one very specific one. Oh, actually two. So the first one is, of course, paying during the dates. Again, not every single Dutch girl is like this, but I noticed that a lot of Dutch girls think that they should split the bill during the date. And that's their normal. And they would not feel comfortable if a guy offered to pay or if a guy persisted to pay. And of course, maybe you're also familiar, there's this saying called going Dutch. And that means basically splitting a bill in half. And just the fact that it's called going Dutch shows that what I'm saying is not false. I mean, it came from something. But another thing about women specifically is that a lot of girls here, they're so I want to do it myself type of girl, and they wouldn't even let a guy to help them or to do stuff for them even if he offered. And one specific example that I have and I'm going to tell you about, which shows the cultural differences between my friend and I so much, I feel like it's going to answer all your questions. So listen to this. My friend, let's call her Anna. It's not Anna, but I don't want to throw the real names. She's Dutch, and she's somebody who really likes to do everything herself, also at home. Like she would paint her own house and, I don't know, put her furniture together. Just a little information, I'm total opposite. I hate everything that has something to do with like a masculine energy, aka building or painting, anything to do with cars. Bueno, so my friend Anna is the total opposite. She always does her things herself, and she wanted to build a frame for her mirror. So she went to a building store to ask for a piece of wood to build her frame. And the guy that was working there told her that it's very difficult, and he asked her if she's sure that she can do it. Now, for me, if I went to a store and asked for something like this, I would think it's normal, or I would even get upset that the guy didn't offer help to me. But my friend Anna took it as an offense that this guy asked those questions because she thought that he suggests that she cannot do it because she's a woman. And she got very upset. And when she told me about it, I found it so intriguing how our perceptions of the same situations were so different because of the cultural differences. And yet again, it was just one of the 150 examples, obviously, I've seen in this country that reassured me that women here are very independent and they don't want to be told how to do things and stuff. Another example that I also have, and I just remembered, is when I was in a restaurant one day and then I saw two employees, a girl and a boy, walking to a storage, and then they went outside with milk and I think toilet paper. And guess what? The guy was carrying toilet paper and the girl was carrying like 12 liters of milk. And I found it so, again, intriguing, I would say, because I thought to myself, if I worked in a restaurant and then I would work with a male colleague and we would go get something at the storage, there's no way on earth that I would let him have the toilet paper while I'm carrying 12 liters of milk. And that is not because I think that women are weaker. I mean, physically, a lot of women are weaker than men, you know? I mean, come for me if you disagree, but that's just biology, you know. Of course, there are women who are stronger than some men. By default, I would probably be way weaker than a guy more or less my size. So that is just a fact in my world. I don't know about yours. But that doesn't mean that I feel like I'm a less of a person, I'm inferior. Of course, I still believe very truly that women deserve to have the same rights and that we are on the same position. It's just about that, yeah, physical aspect, like you're stronger, so if we're together you might as well help me out and take the heavier thing. And again, I still have this kind of Eastern European, I would say maybe leftovers of principle that men are there to sort of, I don't know, I can't find the right word, but all those things, like a guy should help me out to put the bike up if he sees I'm struggling. I do like when men open the door. A guy should pay for first date. So I don't know what would be the specific word to describe this situation, but I'm on that team. Maybe I can do another episode about dating differences in Poland and in the Netherlands. But okay. The point was that women here are very, very independent, and like I already mentioned, a lot of people like going Dutch on dates, which I personally find offensive. And since I'm already on this topic, I know it wasn't supposed to be on dating, but just for you to understand me correctly, to not misunderstand me, I would say, look, I don't think that a guy has to pay for me all the time and that the guy has to take me out for the most expensive dates. No, but especially that first date, I feel like you should invite me, that's for one. And when you're inviting me, you should pay for it. And it also, I think that first date, by the way, should be a cheap date. So it should be like coffee or tea or whatever. So then if you ask me out and we're going for coffee, I think you're not going to get much poorer if you pay for coffee. It's just a gesture. But yeah, a lot of people here disagree, and that is of course okay, because at the end of the day, everybody can find their match, right? Let's move on to a different topic, the work-life balance. So in general, I've noticed that especially comparing to different countries, the work-life balance in the Netherlands is pretty decent. It's pretty good. A lot of people work 4 days instead of 5, and a lot of people, when they work in the offices, they wouldn't be staying working extra hours till I don't know what time, because for a lot of Dutch people, work is just work and they're not here to live to work. And I really, really like that actually. However, I have noticed a recent trend, I would say, especially in big cities like Amsterdam, that there is a little bit of chase. And I think that's this I'm in my 30s kind of crisis, where a lot of friends of mine who are in similar age have this feeling that at this age they should have already bought a house, they should have had decent and set career. So that's maybe a little bit different issue, and I actually already announced on my social media that I'm going to speak about it on one of my episodes. But overall, again, especially if you compare it to different countries, I feel like the work-life balance is still pretty okay here. And I feel like that is also tied to another point that I wanted to speak about, which is the organization of the country and welfare system. If you work for a company, again, I don't know if that's a thing in different countries because I've never been a grown-up in different countries. But what I really like in the Netherlands is that, for instance, if you work in a company, every year you are going to get money for holidays. That would be around May, and the amount would be approximately, I think, 1,000 euros. And that's called, like I said, holiday money. And that's basically amount of money that I guess your company is saving for you throughout the year to give you once a year so you can afford some holidays. And again, I think that's why people here travel more, because they have it almost pre-organized for them. So I really like that. And there's also a lot of other things that show that, again, this country is quite well organized. Of course, it's not perfect. It's by far not perfect. But for instance, also, if you don't make enough money, or if you make, I think, below 27,000 euros a year, you also have a lot of subsidies to help you pay your bills. For instance, you get subsidy for your rent, a few €100. You also get subsidy for your health insurance. So just to give you a little picture, health insurance in the Netherlands costs more or less 110, 150 euros per month. It's obligatory, but if you don't make enough money, the government is going to return you, I think, like 80 euros, which again, I think is pretty cool, and I don't think it's a thing in every single country. Another thing that I really, really like here is that even though we pay a lot of tax, which I'm going to complain about later, you at least see a little bit where is that tax money going. For instance, the streets are very, very pretty. You don't really have really bad and poor neighborhoods, and maybe some Dutch people would disagree, but trust me, if you compare to different countries, even the bad neighborhoods with ugly buildings here would be considered in other countries a pretty neighborhood. And I know from my experience, because sometimes when my Polish friends come visit and then we go to places and we are just by coincidence, I don't know, picking something up in one of the worst neighborhoods, they're like, oh my God, it's so pretty here. And I'm like, yeah, Dutch people would say it's ghetto. So trust me, this country is very well taken care of when it comes to buildings, streets. You don't really have a lot of abandoned buildings. If something is out of service, like some building is not used anymore, I noticed that Dutch government usually takes care of it by putting some people to live there temporarily or letting people have some temporary businesses there. So yeah, I think that's really cool. However, like I already said, I think the fact that this country is so pretty is only right because, girl, the taxes that we have to pay here. And again, I guess people pay taxes all over the world, but I kind of grew up in the Netherlands and my first grown-up experience was here. And up to this day, it hurts my soul. Every time I get a blue letter, which everybody hates because that means it's a government tax service letter, I'm dreading. So yeah, you have to pay a lot of taxes in general, and then you have all these taxes for trash. I guess it's a common thing all over the world. But then we also pay a huge tax, few €100 per year for water. And I don't know if that's a thing in every single country, just because we can drink water from the tap. Woo! So yeah, another fun fact. Tap water is very drinkable and it's pretty nice, to be honest, because when I compared it with UK water, when I traveled to UK a few times, I actually didn't like tap water there. It didn't taste good. And then I started appreciating the very expensive tap water that we have here in the Netherlands. Let's move on to another topic. I already talked about being normal, but let me talk a little bit more about it. So I already told you that we have this saying, doe normaal, dan doe je al gek genoeg, which means basically that Dutch people just like to be basic, you would say, or like just normal, not too crazy. And that is true, I think, especially in smaller towns and cities. But when it comes to Amsterdam, I think it's a little bit different, because I feel like in Amsterdam, you can be as crazy as you want and nobody's going to care. And that brings me to another point that I didn't put on my list, but I think it's very important to mention, especially for foreigners, is that Amsterdam is very poor representation of the Netherlands as a whole. Maybe not poor, but not right. Because, you know, a lot of foreigners, when they visit just for a few days, they would probably come only to Amsterdam, maybe see Rotterdam as well. But those two big cities are not exact representation of what the Netherlands is as a whole. Because to be very honest, I think that actually, and again, I might be wrong here because I'm not that interested in it, but I have noticed throughout the years that actually big cities are minority in the Netherlands, because you also have a lot of, not rural areas, but you have a lot of very small towns where you have a lot of farmers. And there, the mentality is way different than what you see in the Netherlands. Like, for instance, like I said, being basic and keeping it normal and not too crazy is actually main thing in the Netherlands. But in Amsterdam, if you look around, you could disagree, because like, well, in Amsterdam, you have so many crazy people. Mind you, that's because it's Amsterdam and it's very different. Overall, I feel like Dutch people love just keeping it regular, nothing too crazy. So let's move on to number 15 on my list, which is making appointments. Girl, sometimes I wonder if it's just maybe a grown-up thing. When you're adult, that becomes a thing that you have to make appointments with your friends. But I still would persist that Dutch people are people who really love making appointments. So by default, there's no way that you can just hang out with a friend spontaneously. You have to get your agendas and scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll and find that one magic day when both of you are free, and then you schedule it in. Overall, everything here is through appointment. And yeah, that brings me actually to another topic, which are friendships. So I noticed again with a lot of Dutch people that you cannot just pull up to somebody's house. It really will take you many, many years to get close enough with someone to be able to come to their house. Otherwise, you're just going to be having those meetings and appointments outside in the cafes and stuff. I'm not saying that every single Dutch person is like this, because I have Dutch friends, like for instance Lily, where I can just probably even call her right now and be like, hey, you home? I'm going to be there in an hour, and I can just pull up and sit on her couch and chill. But by default, that's really a no-go with Dutch people, even if you're quite close friends. So yeah, it is what it is. And I think it also shows to the fact that, connects to the fact that Dutch people are a little bit distant and not very community oriented. Also, when it comes to family, I hear a lot that Dutch people are not very close with their extended family. So for instance, in Poland, or my personal example is that I really cuddle with my mom, and I'm very close with my mom, and same with my grandma. Like I call my grandma and I cuddle with my grandma. But I noticed that a lot of my Dutch friends are just not like that. Family for them is just, we family, cool. We see each other, but we're not really that affectionate and lovey-dovey with each other. And so I totally understand why they would be like this with friends as well, like a little bit more distant and cold, I would say. And that actually brings me to another point and another story that I actually experienced, is that, again, if you show up at your Dutch friend's house, don't. But if by any chance you do it and they would be having dinner, there's a high chance that they would literally tell you to wait outside or to wait wherever because they're eating. There's nothing crazy and nothing wrong about it if you grew up here, but coming from Eastern Europe or South America, that is kind of different than what we used to. Because if that happened in Poland, that somebody would just show up in your house and announce, they would be in the neighborhood and be like, oh yeah, I just decided to pass by, and you would be eating. What Polish people would do, or South Europeans or South Americans, is even if they don't have enough, they would scrap through their plate and share their food with the other person to make sure that they're eating with us. But yet again, I think it's the combination of the distance, appointment mentality, and also Dutch directness. Dutch people will be like, well, I'm sorry, I'm eating right now, come back later. Cool, all good. I already talked that it's a very organized country, and we definitely love it. Also, when it comes to public transport, it's not perfect, and a lot of people complain about it. But yet again, if you compare it to different countries, it's pretty great. And also it's so clean. I remember when I came to the Netherlands and I was traveling by train for the first time, I had to double check with them whether I am really in the second class, because second class looked so bougie to me already that, I just had to double check. And now I drive more or I bike, but every now and then when I take a train, I'm still impressed. I'm like, damn, it's so cute and so clean, and I really, really like it. And then I remembered about all those taxes, and then I started taking it for granted because, okay, I paid for it. I forgot to mention one more thing. The fines in this country are enormous and scary. For instance, just a simple example, if you park your car wrong and it gets towed away, you pay 374 euros to get it back. I know, because it happened to me. I don't know how much is it in other countries, but I can't imagine it's that much. And the same when it comes to driving. My mom lives in Germany, and when we compare prices, how much she pays for breaking the rules in Germany versus how much I have to pay here, it's triple, sometimes quadruple in the Netherlands comparing to Germany. So don't break the law. Let's move on. I said it's very organized welfare. Ooh, yeah, okay, so great. But one thing that is not very great here is the GP system. The healthcare here is a joke, unless you have a specific issue. But let's talk about it later. So again, I feel like this is also very popular opinion, and you see a lot of jokes about it on TikTok and other social media. But your GPs, your doctors, will not take you seriously unless you're almost dead. And that shows through them looking upset when you're showing up. Let's start from there. If you're trying to call to your GP to make an appointment because you're not feeling well, the assistant that you have on the phone will make sure to discourage you as much as she can from coming. But if you persist and you finally make it to the GP, your GP a lot of times will make you feel like you're just unreasonable for coming and you're wasting their time, and they will very often send you away with a recommendation to drink some water, go for a walk, take some rest, or take their favorite medication, paracetamol. And look, I understand that some people are exaggerating when it comes to their health, and they feel like something is itching them and they're already thinking that they're dying. But me, for for instance, I'm not one of those people. If I call a doctor, that means that something really bothers me and it's very inconvenient for me to put it in my very busy agenda. And like if I wanted just to hang out somewhere, the doctor office would really not be a place. But because of this system here where people really make you feel like you're just being crazy and annoying by coming, I really reconsidered 20 times when calling a doctor. And every time I have to call a doctor, I always feel almost anxious that I have to bother them. And there were a lot of really sad examples that I have seen right in front of my eyes where people were struggling and there was something wrong with their health and they would be sent away by the doctors over and over again. And not to make it very drastic and dramatic, but they died because it turned out way too late that they had very serious health issues, and then it was too late for them to save them. So that's very sad and very annoying. There are nice doctors, like after all those years I found a reasonable one who makes me feel a little bit less guilty when coming, and I feel like I have two doctors, they just kind of switch. I feel like they do take me serious when I show up and I usually get what I want, but it's also because, again, I have learned to stand up for myself and I come in very strong to the doctor's office. But yeah, I hear a lot of very, very sad and horrible stories. And actually recently, because of my ex-boyfriend, I understood what is very likely the reason for it. And that is, of course, boom, shocker, money. So what I heard is that the doctors have a limited amount of time for every patient, which is, I don't know, like 5 minutes or something. And also it's very frowned upon if they prescribe you too much medication or send too many people to specialists. So they really have to be very, very strict with it. So it's just a faulty system, I would say, because it's not like the doctor doesn't want to help you, but they have some people and some rules above them that will put them almost in trouble if they take you too seriously and spend too much time on you, which is very sad. However, like I said, if you have a specific issue, like for instance, I had my ACL injury, then you are going to be taken seriously and I feel like you are going to be taken care of very well. So yeah, it happened to me that I have torn my ACL and I feel like the hospital that I ended up at was very excellent, and yeah, I felt very well taken care of. And also when it comes to physiotherapy, I feel like it was really top notch. I can't compare it with different countries, but I really like it. And also another thing that I really liked and really helped me is that you remember that very expensive health insurance that we have to pay monthly? Well, in that case, when I had very expensive surgery and very, very long rehabilitation, that really saved me because yes, you pay a lot a month if you think about it, but then if you have to go through some expensive surgeries, we have this own risk thing that varies between 300 to 700 euros per year. And then if anything costs above it, the health insurance covers it for you. So that brings me to the point that I think healthcare is very faulty here, but health insurance department is pretty well organized. Some people might disagree because yeah, it is a lot to pay 100 something euros a month, especially if you're never sick. But in my case, it really saved me because my surgery would cost thousands and thousands of euros. And actually I had two, so that would be a lot of money, but thanks to the health insurance, I didn't have to pay it. Let's move on to another point, which is a very random switch, but it's electronic dance music. And Dutch people love for it. Dutch people love techno and electronic music, and I'm not blaming them, even though I'm not that much of a fan, because a lot of really good DJs and really good producers actually come from the Netherlands. They really have a thing for the beat. Also in urban scene, there were some Dutch producers who were invited to work with international artists like Jason Derulo and stuff. But definitely techno is a thing here. And like I've already said, I think a lot of very popular techno DJs actually are from the Netherlands. And we also have this huge event once a year called Amsterdam Dance Event, where plenty of very famous DJs come here and perform. And it's like party for a week or couple days, and it's very worldwide known. Like when I travel to different countries and I say I'm from Amsterdam, some people know just that, like this party particularly. And as it seems to me, again, I'm not really part of that crowd. I don't really listen to techno, but it seems to me that drugs is also a big part of this community. And again, it kind of aligns because I have noticed while living here for so many years that drugs in this country is not really a big thing. And I'm not talking about weed, which by the way, I'll tell you a little fun fact about in a second, but I mean like hard drugs. Of course, they're illegal. Don't let me spread misinformation. But for instance, when I used to work in the clubs and I would be hosting at the door, I would see that when security checks people and there would be people having some drugs like ecstasy with them or whatever, they would not really get arrested. The drugs would just get confiscated and put in this little box that the clubs had that would be for drugs, and then it would be sent to police station or something. But nobody would get in huge trouble if they have a little drugs with them, just pill or something. Whereas I feel like in different countries like Poland, you would go to jail. Maybe not for a year or something, but I feel like you definitely get arrested if you have ecstasy on you. So yeah, that's something that I noticed. And even on dating apps, I was on Hinge. I don't know if that's a worldwide thing, but I noticed that one of the questions that you can ask is next to whether you drink alcohol and smoke weed and cigarettes is whether you do hard drugs. That's how normalized it is that you just put it in dating app like, oh yeah, I'm 32, I'm 168, yeah, I do hard drugs once upon a time. But to be very honest with you, I feel like just because it's more accessible, I feel like it's more likely to be controlled, and then the quality also is better. And so people, when they do take drugs, they take quality drugs, which I guess won't make them get very sick, right? I don't know. I guess that would be like one positive. And as I was talking about soft drugs like weed, a lot of people think that it's legal, period. But actually, it's a little bit more complex than that. I'm not going to be explaining it now. But basically, the way it works is that it's not legal to grow it and to sell it, but it's legal to have it, like a little bit. So there's just like a little loophole in the system, but that's a misconception to say that weed is legal in the Netherlands. It's a little bit more complex than that. So here you have a little peeny-weeny fun fact. Another thing that I have for you guys when it comes to people, Dutch people loving things, is their love for cheese. An example that I have for you guys that illustrates that love is when I was traveling with my Dutch friends to Jamaica for a few weeks, like 3 or 4 weeks. Those girls packed their cheese with them because apparently they couldn't live without cheese for a couple of weeks. And to me it was kind of cute and funny because there are things that I really, really like when it comes to food, but there's absolutely nothing on this world that I can't live without for 4 weeks. Like, I'm fine, I don't have to pack it in my luggage. But that basically illustrated for me very well how much Dutch people love their cheese. Cute. And again, not blaming them because cheese is good here. So all good, you guys. That was, I think, one of the last things. Oh no, there are 2 more, very random and unrelated. So let's start from the love department. One more thing that Dutch people love is the Formula One. It's such a big thing here. And again, I'm not interested enough to understand whether it's because they have something to do with Formula One specifically, but I really noticed that it's a huge party here. And what I do know though is that there's this one Dutch driver that's apparently doing really well right now, which makes Dutch people, I guess, love it even more. I forgot his name because I'm not very good with names. The Formula One is really, really big thing here, just like football as well. I guess because Dutch team is doing pretty well. And also, now that I'm saying it, I kind of realize that I feel like football is a big thing in every single country when there are like games and stuff. I think most countries are getting excited and stuff. But yeah, so in the Netherlands as well. For instance, our color is orange because of the last name of the king, I think. So the national color of the Netherlands is orange. So when there is something special happening, like for instance the Formula One or football, you see in the supermarkets like orange cakes and orange hats and all these accessories that you can purchase to show your love and support to the country. Oh my god, there's another thing. Now I'm just having all these things popping that I didn't put on my notes, but I think one cool thing to mention is that the Netherlands apparently has been first country that legalized gay marriage in the world, and that also shows in their celebration of gay pride. So the party on the gay pride is amazing and huge here. You have a lot of people on the boats, on the canals, partying and celebrating, and the whole city turns into a little bit of a madhouse in a good way because people are wearing the craziest outfits and everybody's just so friendly and so fun and yeah, just celebrating and having fun. And of course, I'm not saying that it's perfect because you hear stories where queer people are still struggling and not being taken seriously or treated equally. But I do think, from my perspective, that the Netherlands is doing pretty okay job when it comes to gay rights. And another thing that is very, very hugely celebrated is the King's Day. So we have a King's Day, you guys, once a year. It's a king's birthday. And that day is, I think, more important than Christmas for some. Because the thing is that here in the Netherlands, you don't really have a lot of public holidays. I feel like, especially comparing to Germany, we don't really get days off like the official ones. The only time where everything is closed and people are off, as in like as many people as possible, would be, I think, Christmas Day, like the first Christmas Day and the first New Year's Eve. And other than that, it's just not a thing. However, when it comes to that King's Day, which happens in April, the world shuts down and everybody comes out to celebrate the King's Day, and people just lose their mind. And yet again, the streets turn into a party house. Everybody's dancing, yelling, drinking on the streets. And of course, everybody wears orange because, like I already mentioned, it's a color of the country. So those are a little two extras that I just remembered as I was talking to you guys. Pretty cool. And the last thing that I wanted to close this podcast with is a therapy. I think it's also a trend in general in the world, a really good trend, but I feel like the mental health in this country is pretty well and seriously taken. Sadly, though, the waiting lists are way too long when it comes to therapists, but at least I feel like Dutch people are not ashamed to ask for help. So a lot of people in the Netherlands have been to therapy or go for therapy or have been waiting for months for therapy. But yeah, I really, really like it that people are a little bit more conscious and aware that healthcare is something that you really, really have to take care of, because I feel like in some countries, again, like for instance in Eastern Europe, it's still a little bit of a taboo, especially with the older generation. Like my mom would say like, oh yeah, go for therapy, I totally support it, but I don't need it because I'm strong. So they still associate the therapy with being weak rather than being strong because you're able to face your problems. And by they, I mean our parents from Eastern Europe. But here in the Netherlands, I see it not being an issue, and I see a lot of people doing it. And I really, really love it. Those were the things on my list that I had. As you can see, I feel like there was a lot of positive ones, and some things are a little bit more negative, but nothing is perfect. So let me know if you're Dutch. Let me know if I represented your country accurately, or if you totally disagree with me. And if you're a foreigner, also let me know if you agree with me and if there's anything else that you notice about the Netherlands that I didn't mention. And if you're from a different country, let me know whether some of those things are similar in your country as in the Netherlands. Yeah, other than that, I just wanted to send you lots of love. I thought that this podcast is going to be like 30 minutes, but now I see that I was ranting for almost an hour. Oops. So I hope that you enjoyed it, and I speak to you soon. Big kiss.